Hi guys, it's Emily from Nobel Novels and welcome to today's video. This is my January wrap up part 2. Now, January's been quite a good reading month, but I've not had as many 5 stars as normal. In fact, I've had a lot less 5 stars than I've had in a while. But I have had fun. We did the Past and Future Readathon with my lovely co-host, the lovely Alice from Alice's Giant Bookshelf, Jem from Gemma Books, and Jack from Spread Bookjoy. We had the bingo board, we did live reading sprints, which was the first time I've ever done that, and we had a lot of fun, and I really loved it. Going forward, they've agreed to do it next year, so yay! I love doing the bingo board. I got a complete bingo. My treat, just in case you didn't see, was I bought myself Gomersham Park, which was a big treat, and I did also buy myself a few other books because I went book shopping with Gemma from that was previously Read a Book Gem. Those books will be going in my February book haul because, well, I kind of filmed my January one before I'd even gone shopping. But get the idea that might be deliberate because it may, in fact. But that's why my numbers look a bit different this month than what they probably technically are. But like I said to you in my channel plans, I'm going to get less stressed by my numbers and just enjoy it. I know that I've already bought, by the time this video goes live, I've already bought over 20 books. And yeah, I have kind of also, Chris has bought me Valentine's Day books that I kind of picked and paid for, and then he's paying for them really. But you know, that's just the way it is. But, you know, I'm having fun. Going forward, like I said, I wanted to make sure that I picked some books that were happy. I did enjoy doing the bingo. I really loved the prompts. I'm really happy with everything that's gone on. So here's my stats. The next couple of minutes will be the stats, okay? So I read a total of 34 books this month. No idea how. Admittedly, the last book that I've read, I'm finishing on the 31st. But I've already changed my star rating from what it was last night to what it is today. Because and I'll talk about it more when I get to that book. But I've read 34 books. 31 of those were off my unread TBR. One of them was a borrowed book I had two rereads. So yeah, that's fine. Going forward in September, in February, I know I've got 3 books on my shelves that is a reread. So I am unhauling some books next month, but I only unhauled one off my unread TBR this month. I can't remember what that was, but I only unhauled one. But I only got 22 books in January until I did the madness, but we're not going to go there. You'll find out more about those on my book haul, which will be the next video. So my January unread TBR went up to 371 and my February unread TBR is 361. So it went down by 10, which is actually down 1 less than what it was at the start of December. So it's going to kind of go up and down. And like I said, I'm not stressing on that number now. It's not a big deal. I don't count audiobooks, but going forward, I did listen to an audiobook. I listened to Flatshare on BorrowBox, which I loved, and I'm planning to listen to the Switch on audiobooks. But because it's not a physical book, I don't count it in my stats. But I did love it, and I really can't wait to do more audiobooks. So now for the genres. I read 1 fiction book, which you would have seen in my last video. That was an Alice Walker book. I read 1 fantasy. But I have actually been buying a few more fantasy again. I read 2 classics, 3 non-fictions, 11 historical fictions, and 16 contemporaries. I have taken a little break from thrillers, although going forward March I've got a thriller, and I may add an extra thriller into February because I've actually found that a month without a thriller, I actually missed it a little bit. So going forward, I'm going to be reading thrillers going forward again, but I just needed a little bit of a headspace break from that. I had 1 unrated book, which I'll be showing you in a minute. I had 6 3-star books, which isn't good, because we all know 3 stars are my meh books. 4 3.5-star books, 11 4-star books, 3 4.5-star books, 9 5 stars. Now, 9 5 stars is still pretty darn good, but it wasn't as wowy as it has been previous months. In fact, let me have a quick squiz. Because I'm nosy, I like to look back at my old videos. The 4-star books is similar. Yeah, actually, it's kind of similar to last month, actually. Because in December, I only had 10 5 stars. And 11 4 stars. So it's kind of similar actually. It's just, I've had quite a lot of average kind of books, but hey ho, let's not get stressed. Let's talk about it, otherwise this video is going to be too long, and I do not want it being too long. Because obviously I've read so many books, I won't go into too much detail about each book, other than the ones that are really like standouty. The first book is my book that I read as an unrated book, and that I didn't rate, and that's because it was a book that was gifted to me by the lovely Ross from Scally Dangle about the books, and that's The Crossing, which is the story of East Timor by Lewis Cardoz. Ross sent me this as one of her giveaways. It's really sweet. I didn't want to rate it because it's not my place to justify. It's like quite a memoir kind of book, and it's about a book about Louis Cardoz's journey growing up in East Timor. Very interesting. Definitely one that was easy to fly through, but I really don't feel like it's my place to rate that. But I am going to keep that because it's one I would like to reread, and I think my sister Charlie from Charlie Brooke Reads may want to read that. Let me know, Charlie, do you want me to borrow that? Now for my 3 stars. These are quite meh books. This is a book, this next one was one I read while I was doing one of the reading sprints. And it's The Greatest Hits by Laura Barnett. I thought, oh, book about music, great, gonna love it. But it wasn't. Like, it was a very big book, and it really dragged. And it was about, basically, if you liked Daisy Jones and the Six, it was kind of along those lines, but not as good as Daisy Jones and the Six. About like a singer's history. It was quite like that, and you go backwards and forwards. Cass Wheeler has seen it all, from the searing heights of success to the earth-shattering moments of despair. I counted it as historical fiction, but it has, on Storygraph, it actually says it's non-fiction, so I don't know about that. I've decided I'm not going to pick up any more of this author's works, because it was very long and it felt very monotonous. So that's on my charity shop pile. Then a book I picked up because it was in one of my non-fiction books, my favourite non-fiction books about books. And this is 26A by Diana Evans. Alice, loved this. Yeah, I only rated it 3 stars. I didn't connect. It's about twins. It's very much more literary fiction. And I think I'm not into literary fiction. And it's about twins, and it's about a cherishable story about a family life, a London life, and above all that's alien, a secret planet we call childhood. But I just didn't connect with it, and it wasn't one that I could easily read. So sorry, Alice. Next, an Elizabeth Noble book. This is a book about books. It's called The Reading Group, and it's all right. It's quite an average book about a reading group. They've all got different stories. It all intermingles. I love the references to the books that are referenced that they're reading in the reading group. And if it was more about the books, I would have loved it even more. And it was okay. It was just a very average contemporary. It doesn't talk enough about the last book, which is The Girl with the Pearl Earring, which I loved. It's got about The Alchemist. I read The Alchemist. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. God, I love that. And that was all right. They did talk about that a little bit. I Capture the Castle I didn't really talk about enough, because I loved that as well. But yeah, it's an all right book. If you like a cosy contemporary, really easy to read. Even though it's chunky, I did quite fly through it. And then a book that really disappointed me, and it was one I read with Gemma again from previously Read a Book Gem, and that was The Governess by Wendy Holden. And this talks about Crawfie, who was the late Queen's and the Princess Margaret's governess. And it's a non-fiction story, but I think it's based quite factually. But it doesn't portray Crawfie in a very good way. I think it gets her up your own arse, basically, for putting it bluntly. She seems quite snobby. She's trying to go against the grain. That you start the book with her saying she wants to work with the poor, she wants to teach the poor, she wants to bring better, and she ends up being the governess to like I said. But it doesn't talk nicely about the royal family. It doesn't portray the Queen Mother's mum, the late Queen's mum, very well. It portrays her very badly, actually, and I didn't enjoy it. The Queen's portrayed quite nicely. Our late Queen's portrayed quite nicely. Margaret again's quite fun, but I found myself reading this and thinking about The Crown and the earlier series of The Crown, and yeah, I just didn't like Crawfie's character. I've been a bit hit and miss with Wendy Holden, and I'm not going to try and read any more of her work, but that book disappointed me a lot more than I thought it would, and Jem felt the same. Now to my 3.5 star books, and the first one is Defenders of the Earth by Jean Plady. I've had this on my shelf for ages. I realised there's a sticker on it, and they're going to get confused if I take it back to the charity shop with a sticker. And it's all right. This is about cousins, and it's mainly about the Spanish, about faith and things like that. And it really is about dependence of the faith. And it's set in the Tudor era, but it's not connected to the Tudor, really. But the wrong religion can easily mean a brutal death, and it's quite hard-hitting. It's very hard-hitting, and it's one of Jean Play's earlier works, I believe. But it was good. It was a lot better than I thought it would be. But it's very hard-hitting, and there's some very, very gory, yucky bits in it. So going forward, be aware of that. And then this is a book that I found that amazing bookmark that I think I showed you. And this is Sing Your Way Home. And it's about Zoe Baxter, who spent 10 years trying to get pregnant. And when she's about to get her heart's desire, tragedy destroys her world. This really does tackle infertility. It tackles genetics and whether, you know, a baby is a baby when it's in vitro, and or when it's actually a test, when it's like an embryo, like and it really does get you thinking about that. It also talks about religion and about like genetics and what makes a baby and things like that. So that, as a mum, that really got me thinking. But it is very, very hard hitting, and it's one that gets you thinking. But it was good, and it's just one that really was quite emotional in its own ways. So those are the 3.5 star books. And now to the 4 stars. You know, for me, 4 stars is a really good book. Not necessarily one I'm going to keep, but a really good book. So the first is Lost and Found, the true tales of love and rescue from Battersea Dogs and Cats Home. I think I might give this to Mia, because I think Mia might actually like this, because it talks about pets. And it talks about cats and dogs that are lost and found, and it's really good. And if you've got an animal, you always want what's best for the animal. This is very emotional. It does, like, we got our cats from when they were like kittens, and as a cat lover, I love the cat stories even more than the dog ones. But yeah, talks about Battersea Cats and Dogs Home. I need to go and watch. I need to see if I can find that on the TV. See if I can find Paula Grady's books on that, because I did used to love watching that on TV. So I'm not sure about that one. Then a book I borrowed from my sister Charlie, and this is Sorry by Lade Hunt. She relates it to Anne of Green Gables, but it's a lot harder hitting than Anne of Green Gables. It's slower paced. It is a good book. It's one that's slow, cosy story, but very hard hitting. There are bits I really did cry. It's a very short story, but it's about a quiet book. As a girl, Zori Underwood's modest and unscrubbable home country was the only constant in her young life. After losing both her parents, Zori is moved in with her aunt, whose death orphaned Zori all over again, casting her into perilous realities and sublime landscapes of the rural Depression era in Indiana. But this does talk about, do you remember the Radium Girls? I think that there's bits about the Radium Girls and what the impact of the people that had to look after, paint the radium stuff on people. That bit's very hard hitting. It is a really good book, and one that I definitely liked. But it's very, very hard. Even though it's slow paced, it's still very emotional. Now to a good old Kathy Bramley. I think Mum's going to love this, and this is Conditional Love. It's one I found, it was on my Amazon wishlist because I love Kathy Bramley's work. It's one of her older books, so it's not, in my eyes, the best, but it is a cosy contemporary. What surprises might life have in store for you? A takeaway, a TV, and tea with 2 sugars is about as exciting as life gets for Sophie. And then she thinks her life is predictable, and then she has a mystery benefactor, excuse me, that leaves her house. And it also, but on the proviso that she meets her dad that she's not seen since she was a baby, or never met really. And she kind of gets to go back, and she has an evil boss, and she gets to make the most of her life. And it's quite a lot of hope and emotion and friendship and found family, and yeah, really good book. Mum's gonna have that. Now the next 2, I've ended up reading the last 2 in the series, which is The Christmas with the East End Angels and Victory with the East End Angels. I won't go into too much details because they're the 3rd and 4th in the series, but they are really good. And it's a really good series, and it's one like the East End Angels, and it's set at the wartime. It's about 3 good friends, and it's their story, and the way it ends in the Victory for the East End Angels, the way it all ties together is brilliant. I love the fact that the author got it right, and there were some surprises. It's emotional, it's very typical wartime, but one my mum is going to love. next to an ark that I found in the charity shop, but I'm going to give back to the charity shop. I don't know what to do with this because it's an ark. I found it in the charity shop. But whether I read it, I don't know, because I know technically I'm not supposed to be selling arks. This is 2 Women, 1 Decision, a Million Dreams. And it's very emotional, full of verse. It's typical Danny Atkins in the fact it's very emotional. It's about 2 women that have a connection, and they have a very important connection. It's about motherhood again, and whether your genetics and what makes a mum a mum. I wonder what my mum's going to think of that. Let her borrow it and see what she thinks. But it's very important. Very much about like what makes a mum a mum, what makes a family a family. Now, one that I know I'm definitely not giving to my mum because it's totally anti-Christianity in its own way. And that's Sue Monk's kids' book, The Book of Longings. And this is one, basically it's a bit of a retelling about Jesus. And it's set Anna, who's born in Galilee at the time when women are seen as possessions, only leaving her father's home to get married. Anna longs to control her destiny, taught to read despite her mother's misgivings. She wants to be a writer. And then she's betrothed to an elderly widow, and then she meets Jesus in Nazareth. And yeah, a bit of a contrast because it really does kind of put a lot of the Bible into sort of question. But the writing is really good, and you like Anna's character. She's feisty. She's not of her time. It's quite a dreamy book, and it's quite interesting. It really did get me thinking, but Mum's not going to like that, so definitely into a charity shop. Then after reading some hard-hitting books, I read, I think this is the last of the 4 stars, and this is Living My Best Life, and it's about how what we portray on Instagram is that ourselves, and I've read quite a few books about that. But this is quite interesting because, again, it's about like the image you portrayed. It talks about friendship quite a lot and a community, which is a big thing for me that I really love. And recently dumped by a boyfriend of 10 years, Belle is struggling to move on with her life and surrender the fleecy pyjamas she's been living in since January. Yeah, I kind of get that. Love living in my pyjamas, as you've well seen. I love living in my hoodies. Half my Instagram lives are on me with my hoodies. And yet you've got Millie, who's online. She's like she presents her life as perfect. She edits it. She photoshops her life. And when they meet up, it's quite interesting because they've got different dynamics with each other. But the friendship's brilliant. It is a really good, feel-good, cosy book. And after reading a lot of hard-hitting books, this was just what I needed. Don't think this is a mum book though, so no. Now to a book that was going from 4 stars last night, and I'm going to finish this today, and it's 4.5 stars. You guys know I'm doing a Invisible Disabilities readathon. If whoever comments first will get this for that, because it will actually work for that. And this is Mike Gale's book, and it's about 2 different guys, Danny Allen and James DeWitt, and they basically, one of them has a acquired brain injury. That is something that's you find out very early on. And the other guy is a guy that's been down on his luck. He started off his life amazing, and then something happened and it changed his life. And when they meet, things change. I'm not going to go into detail because I do not want to give spoilers. But for me, what's making it 4.5 stars is the stuff about the acquired brain injury. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are aware that I had a brain injury when I had my car accident. I was not as badly off as this guy here, but I had to relearn a lot of things. And my life is still, my brain injury does affect me, especially, not so much in the day-to-day, but it does affect me when I'm very tired. It means my emotions can be very high and low, and I can't remember my life almost before this. So for me, the acquired brain injury stuff is very interesting, and I think it does talk about it in a very real way. There is some stuff in this that really has impacted me, because at one point after my car accident, I went to Headway and I met other people with head injuries, and that in itself really helped me, because it helped me to meet other people with brain injuries, and it helped my mum because she worked for them, and it helped her to realise what she was like because she was my carer. So this is a really good book. It's one I'm going to finish very shortly, and it's one that I just think is absolutely incredible. So it's one I definitely recommend, and if anyone wants to have this for the readathon, let me know. Now to my 5-star books. First one is The 101 Dalmatians by Dodie Smith. I'm going to keep this. It's definitely good. But it's different from the films. The Disney film that I love. We all love 101 Dalmatians. It's a book that reminds us of our childhood. It's told in the dog's story. and it's different from the film because there's a bit of a twist in this that wasn't in the film, but it's a good cozy contemporary. I read it for the readathon and absolutely loved it. Then obviously a page 2 was going to be 5 stars. It was a reread. The Minute I Saw You. What I love about this book, it's one of my favourites, and the lead character works in the opticians. She's actually a qualified DO, which is dispensing optician, which I'm not. I'm just a optical consultant, but I've been doing the job for like 15 years, so I do know quite a lot. And it actually portrayed, I spoke to the author when this author wrote this book, and I read it for the first time. I did mention to her that she got the actual optic side of it, excuse me, spot on. She actually described the pre-screening machine. She described a lot of that stuff spot on, which to me, as my job, that really meant a lot. There is a romance in this. There's friendships in this. Page 2 does not disappoint whatsoever. It's set in Cambridge. I love the bits about the punting, which she's written in other books. I love the love story. It's a great reread and one that I absolutely love. Next to another book that was going to be 5 stars. It's The Winter Garden by Kristin Hannah. I will be keeping this, but I will lend it to my mum actually because I know she's going to love this. Actually, I'll lend her the page 2 one as well. I can't remember if she's read that. But this is historical fiction. It's very, very hard-hitting, very, very emotional. Meredith and Nina Winston are as different as sisters can be. One stayed at home to raise her children and manage the family apple orchard. The other followed a dream and travelled the world to become a photojournalist. And then they find out their story about their mother's history. And a lot of this is set in war-torn Leningrad. And this is wartime, a bit of the wartime bit. And it mixed a bit of like mystery in it. It does mix in a bit of fantasy almost because the mother's story, but it's very, very emotional. I broke down and cried in this, and I thought it was absolutely an incredible book. And yeah, I loved it. Then lastly, to the last book of the month, 99% mine. It's actually not the last, but you know what I mean. Penultimate book of the month, but the last book I'll be talking about. And this is 5 stars. Mum is not going to read this. I am going to keep it though, because it's, well, not a mum book, because it's got a lot of sexy stuff in it. It's an American book, and I didn't expect to love this. I did speak to the BookTube Waffle girls because I did say, can I get away with rating this not 5 star? Because technically it's sort of trashy, some people would say is trashy because of the saucy stuff. But it was a pleasure to read. It was fun, exciting. It talked about twins and siblings. It does talk about a heart condition. It does talk about friendship. And yeah, I absolutely loved it. I loved it. It was saucy. It was brilliant. It was fun. It was great. Again, you got the friendships in it. I loved it. It was a brilliant, really good, fun book, and one that I'm definitely keeping. So that's it. My favourites for the month, just that you know, because there isn't that many to talk about. My favourites, first of all, is The Winter Garden, because it's Kristin Hannah. It was out of the skies. I actually couldn't read for a while after reading this. It was that good. Couldn't read anything else after reading that. And then obviously The Impulse Purchase by Veronica Henry, which I read in part 1. So those are my favourites for the month. What books have been your favourites for the month? Let me know in the comments down below. I love hearing about what other people have really enjoyed reading. Thank you again to my co-host for the readathon. Thank you again for those that participated in it. It was so good. Going forward, we are going to be doing a few more reading sprints, not for obviously a readathon, but as a group, we've discovered we actually really enjoy doing that. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, not subscribed, ring on my ding-a-ling, and I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.